This podcast contains audio taken from our live interview with Adam Payne of UltraBotanica. That live interview can be found on Facebook or on YouTube. Links will be provided in the description of today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of The Spectrum Report. Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Spectrum Report. The Spectrum Report is brought to you by Neural Balance with anandinol. If you'd like to learn more about that, you can go to our website, neuralbalance.com, and click on the How It Works tab. I'm your host, Gabriel Williams, the CEO of Spectrum Research Group, and I'm happy that you're here with us today. Today, our guest is Adam Payne, the CEO of UltraBotanica. They're the company that produces our newest product, Neural Hemp. So we invited Adam on today to speak to you about cannabinoids, the different types of cannabinoids, terpenes, and that entourage effect that we keep hearing about. We also wanted to talk a little bit with him about how Neural Hemp is made. Very important to know the differences in what you're getting out there as far as hemp derivative products and CBDs. So, without further ado, we will welcome our guest, Adam Payne. Adam, we welcome you to the show. You've been on before, but for those who weren't able to listen in before, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a reformed pharmaceutical ex-hippie, a hippie home, and I rebelled against the hippie movement and went into the pharmaceutical world, and then God pulled hippie, kicking and screaming out of the pharmaceutical industry into natural health. And I'm an inventor, I'm CEO. I have multiple patents in the natural health space.
It helps you sleep at night too, right?
Yes, yeah. In fact, we make some things that help you sleep at night. You asked us to. I'd like to, speak about, cannabinoids today, because I think that's the neural hemp product that we make for you guys is a beautiful synergy between a full spectrum cannabinoid product plus the curcumin. Correct?
Right.
Yeah. So
right.
And so it really it comes down to two materials that we really believe synergize the activity of each other in helping the body to manage subclinical inflammation at many different places in the body.
Well,
many people.
One of the questions we get is, why not just a CBD? And you're mentioning full spectrum. So that's one of the questions we got. Why don't you just do a CBD product? And that's where the entourage effect comes in. So, yeah, I think you were already heading in that direction, but I had to put my fancy graphic up. So sorry to interrupt.
There you go. Well, the CBD, and you're right. The CBD is an important part of the whole benefit of what cannabinoids can do for the body or the brain or the heart or any organ system in the body. The problem is there are many cannabinoid receptors on a cell, and the affinity of the CBD cannabinoid receptor is very high to the CBDs, but then there are multiple other. There's CB1, CB2, and then there's multiple other ones that we're still just learning about that have different affinities to other cannabinoids. So just putting CBD into your body is going to have some benefit, but we've seen such a dramatic improvement when you use a full spectrum of cannabinoids, not just the decarboxylated cannabinoids, and people might not know the difference, because let me take a step back. If you just take the raw extract from hemp, I'm talking about not THC, pot, cannabis, I'm talking about industrial, predominantly CBD hemp. If you just take the raw extract out of that hemp, it's not bioactive, and it has limited benefit to the body. We actually have to take it from its acid form and decarboxylate. We take the carboxyl groups off of those cannabinoids through a process called decarboxylation. And when we decarboxylate it, those cannabinoids become bioactive, and they can interact with the receptors on the cell. It's without that decarboxylation in the acid form that they don't interact. So we make sure, for one, that you have the decarboxylated or the non-acid form of the cannabinoids in the body. And what we've seen is that there's such an improved effect across all of the spectrum of benefits that cannabinoids can have in the body, just like what you see with anandinol. I know anandinol is primarily a phytocannabinoid material. If you just had one phytocannabinoid in there, you're not going to get the benefit as if you have a full plethora of all of those different cannabinoids interacting with the body.
And that's where the terpenes come into effect, right? Or the different
well,
terpenes,
and we haven't even talked about terpenes yet.
Because, okay.
But so terpenes are largely ignored in the dialogue about cannabinoids. Most extraction methods, and I'm talking about CO2 extraction or ethanol extraction, and most of the butane extraction methods out there, they strip off the terpenes. And in fact, what we're seeing is that the terpenes are responsible for most of the benefits that people are looking for in the cannabinoids. The calmness, the anti-anxiety, the anti-seizure portions of the cannabinoids are really enabled if you have the native terpenes back in the plant. A lot of companies will add food grade terpenes back, and that they just buy off the shelf from flavoring companies. Unlike most companies, and I'm not just tooting our home, because there's other companies that do the same thing, but we do a cryogenic extraction. So our extractions for the hemp happen at minus 30 degrees. And at minus 30 degrees, we retain all of the native terpenes in the mixture. And so what you get out, it actually smells just like the plant material when it comes out of the extraction. And so when we're taking that material and plating it and putting it into capsules, that raw powder smells just like raw hemp plant. Most people, if they walked into our building when we're doing extractions, would think that they'd walk back into a dorm room back in the 60s, because it smells just like that. And our material smells just like that. And honestly, it should. If we want all of the benefits that can come from the hemp plant, you want to do a cryogenic extraction, and you want to decarboxylate it so that you get the non-acid form of the cannabinoids.
Okay, so you're dealing with you're not just isolating the CBD. You're dealing with the different cannabinoids in there, but also the terpenes, the full. So that's where the full spectrum hemp comes into play. That's where the entourage effect starts to work better. So you're dealing with the different aspects.
Most of the extractions out there will lose the terpenes. So you have to be really specific. You have to be very intentional about looking for the extracts that retain the native terpenes from the plant. It makes a huge difference. It really does.
Okay, and we'll talk about a little more about the process here in just a minute. What I did is I compiled a list of questions that we had from people when we were introducing the product when it was in pre-order. Now it's in stock and people are using it and they really like it. But some of the questions that we got when we were first introducing it. So here's the next. So that kind of touches on why we're not just isolating the CBD, we're also including the terpenes, and your process adds a better quality. It brings what was originally with the plant. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. One question that I get is why powder rather than oil? Everybody's all about the tincture and the oil and the encapsulated oil and gel caps and all that stuff. So why powder? Now, I know water soluble, it's going to work better, absorb better, but I'm sure there's more to it than that, right? So why powder rather than oil or a tincture?
Actually, we're using a process that takes this full spectrum terpene, native terpene rich oils that we from our cryogenic extraction, and we plate those oils onto a powder. So in essence, we are the oil inside an elegantly formed powder microcapsule.
Okay.
So we do this so that we can get it into a capsule. You can, your listeners might not realize this, Gabe, but if the people that are using the product have a hard time swallowing capsules, and I don't know if you recommend this to your customers, but you can actually open a capsule and mix it with some food and get it in that way.
Right.
It's the N-acetylcysteine is going to be a little bit acidic, so I would recommend trying to swallow it, but you can definitely get it into solution. So we do use an oil. Essentially, it's an oil.
Okay.
We call it plating onto a carrier.
So it is an oil, so that's good to know, because that was a concern for some people, because
Yeah, it is an oil.
when this industry first started becoming more mainstream, it was all about the tincture and the oil, and the industry itself spent a lot of time and effort educating people on why that's better. So when we came out with a powder form and a capsule, people immediately thought it was something different. So that's good to know that it is still an oil. You're still getting the same purity and efficacy that you would get from a tincture or something. It's just processed in such a way that enables you to encapsulate it and mix it. That is important too, because currently we only offer the capsule form. So you can pull this apart, mix it with a smoothie or a little bit of food or drink, and still get the same effect from it. So that's really good. So the next question, and for me, this is one of the most important questions, especially when I'm looking at a new product or something that's new to me: where is the hemp sourced, and where is it processed? We'll talk. You can tell us a little bit about where it's sourced and processed, and then how you process it. You touched on it a little bit earlier with the minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit and that, but I'd like you to elaborate a little bit on how that makes it more effective.
So a lot of the hemp all of the hemp that we is grown here in Oklahoma, and it's most of it is on organic farms. We test every batch of hemp that we get in before it's even processed to make sure that there is no pesticide contamination and zero heavy metal contamination. We are very careful about not letting any pesticides or any heavy metals into our process, because that can contaminate our processing equipment and all of the different surfaces that we work on. So we're extremely careful, not just to protect our workers, but to protect the health of people that would take the products. People can get very sick if they accidentally ingest a hemp plant that has pesticides or heavy metal contamination. The biggest issue is because that we're essentially concentrating all the plant extract down to a very concentrated form.
Right.
So when you're taking something that's concentrated, anything that's like pesticides would be concentrated down into the oil that eventually gets put into the capsule. So we test before we even process. We test for heavy metals and pesticides after we process, and we make sure that the cannabinoids are at the right levels, including making sure that there's no psychoactive THC that could influence any kind of results there, and that's always below the federal limits. And then we make sure that our finished product, before it gets to any customer, is tested for microbiology purity, so that there's no potential contamination from any kind of molds or funguses or bacteria that could potentially contaminate products during a production process. On the actual extraction process itself, we use one of the most sophisticated systems available. It's actually an equipment company that is founded in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They make a closed system cryogenic extraction system called a Holos 20 and a Holos 120. You can see them online under Elf Manufacturing. What's beautiful about their system is that because it's cryogenic, is that the material that's coming out of the extraction not only retains all of the terpenes, but it's a beautiful material that's free from waxes and free from chlorophylls, which can interfere with the activity of any product.
Okay. And that extraction is a big conversation always because again, I think they figured out some better ways to do it, but even still there are some companies who are using harmful chemicals and solvents and things like that. So the fact that I mean, from growing to testing to the process, the extraction process, you're making sure not only is it strong enough or effective enough that but that it's clean, and that's important because in particular my clients are very, some of them are very sensitive to even small amounts of pesticides or contaminants, and it can really be detrimental for them. So that's one of the reasons why we put this product together with you, because I know that you pay that attention to detail, and that's important to us. We do the same thing with all of the products that we manufacture, the Neural Balance drink powder and the capsules. Raw materials come in, they're tested, they're quarantined, we go through a pretty hefty process too to make sure that there's not even the slightest bit. And I think people would be surprised to know that there are allowable amounts of certain contaminants and things like that in our food and supplements. And we don't even follow that standard. We go much above and beyond even that acceptable level.
Yep.
Zero is about as close as we want to be. So,
and we're the same way, Gabe. We have our limits are non-detectable, so we can't, it can't be any detectable levels of heavy metals or pesticides.
Right, and that's the way you have to be. Yeah. Now, we're talking a lot about the hemp aspect of the product, but let's talk a little bit about the UltraCur-BR Organic. Now, the BR stands for brown rice, so we use that instead of a whey. You do have UltraCur that has a whey base, but we use the brown rice protein rather than that because we want to be very sensitive to like egg or milk or other type of allergens that our customers are sensitive to. So talk a little bit about how your UltraCur BR is different than other curcumins and what advantage is there to have it in the formula, the Neural Hemp formula.
Well, Gabe, that curcumin is very near and dear to me. It's the reason why we started UltraBotanica was because we came up with the invention of how to take molecular curcumin and utilize a protein scaffold as a way to allow curcumin and other polyphenol types of materials to absorb into the body. I don't know if you know this, but one of our collaborators did a study to look at how the conjugate, the brown rice or the whey protein conjugate for that matter, how it transits the gut membranes and the blood-brain barrier. And they showed that the conjugate transits both the gut very quickly and also transits the blood-brain barrier very, very quickly. And this is important because most of the curcumins out there have a very difficult time even just getting from the gut into the circulation. You have to take 8 to 12 grams of raw curcumin in order to see even a minuscule signature in the blood. And the reason why that is because a lot of these compounds, like curcumin, they like to bind to themselves. And so when they're bound to themselves, they're not going to interact with anything. They're not going to transit through the gut. They're not going to be able to get into the brain or into any of the tissues where we want it to be. Now, curcumin is one of the most studied natural anti-inflammatory substances out there. But the problem, again, is that it aggregates. And so the liquid protein scaffold technology that we use in the organic brown rice protein UltraCur-BR allows the curcumin to be absorbed into your body in a molecular form. And when it comes into your body in a molecular form, then it's free to interact, to go in through the blood-brain barrier or to attach to cells that are potentially dealing with inflammation and help to modulate a healthy inflammatory signal in the body.
And that in itself is very important. A lot of the parents that I talk to, they see quite an improvement just in supporting a natural inflammatory response. We don't realize, a lot of times when we think about inflammation, we think about our joints, but there's so much more that goes on. I mean, systemic inflammation affects so many cardiovascular, nervous system health, on and on. So it's very important that we do something to try to support a natural inflammatory response. So specifically, how does it work hand in hand with the full spectrum hemp that's in Neural
Oh,
Hemp?
it's one of the best synergistic benefits that you can see with any product. If it's almost like God made curcumin and hemp to sit together in the same capsule. Curcumin helps to modulate the key inflammatory signaling pathways inside of a cell. It primarily interfaces at a point called the NF-kappa beta node inside a cell, and that node is responsible for elaborating inflammation signals inside of a cell. The cannabinoid signal helps the cell to regulate its overall function. The biggest problem that people face is that their cells get stuck in a particular configuration. I'll give you an example. If you have an immune cell, or let's say it's a nerve cell in the body that has been dealing with subclinical inflammation, without enough of your own body's cannabinoids, that cell can get stuck in an inflammation configuration. The body requires cannabinoids to be present to allow that cell to move from one state, being inflamed, to a non-inflamed state. And so if you have the cannabinoids coming in, it's essentially allowing that cell to transit from one state to another state, from stress to relaxation, from inflammation to being in homeostasis. Where curcumin comes in is it directly throttles that inflammation signaling. A lot of neurological issues happen not because of overexcitement, but because of something that we call subclinical or microinflammation in the brain or in the nervous tissue. And what we find is that when you modulate that inflammation signal in that nervous tissue, that the body is able to regulate the inflammatory signal, and then the cannabinoids can come in and help the body to recognize a change in status from inflammation or stress to one of homeostasis. That's where the combination really has its most profound impact. The hemp providing the endocannabinoid system with what it needs in order to regulate, and the curcumin coming in, giving the body what it needs in order to manage and to throttle a healthy inflammation response inside of the cell.
So some of the feedback we got, I just pulled up one that we received recently from one of our customers, Noelle. She's been using the Neural Balance for quite some time, and she just added the Neural Hemp when we got our first our first run in a couple weeks ago, and she says the Neural Hemp has helped chill him out a bit. We've definitely noticed a change with this. It's not as helpful as Neural Balance with attention and focus, but the reduced hyperactivity and labile, I don't know if I said that correctly, labile mood is a big help. So what she's reporting is a reduction in hyperactivity and labile mood. I don't even know what that means, but I probably.
But it sounds like it sounds like the hemp is helping him to
stabilize.
And to change from a stress and overexcited state to more of a calm state. Again, that's the endocannabinoid system.
Okay. Irregular emotional responses, and that's something I hear a lot too. Either too emotional or not an appropriate emotion for that. So that's good. The hyperactivity and the the inappropriate emotional response would be helpful. And that's the thing, with Neural Hemp, and that's something we talked about. The same thing with our other product, Neural Balance with anandinol. We don't want to sedate your child. We don't want to sedate people. We don't want to turn them into a zombie or put them to sleep. We want to help regulate their system, or support a normal balance in their system so that their body can respond properly. So that's a great example. It reduced the hyperactivity, but not in a sedation type of way, and it's helping to even out his emotional responses so that he can be happier, more productive for the things that he's concentrating on. And that's exactly where we want to come in. We don't, one of the things we hear over and over again from parents is they don't want to sedate their kids. They don't want a zombie. That's a word that we hear a lot. We don't want them sleepy. And one of the things I always say is we're not trying to make your child manageable. We're trying to help them be who they are. And when you can deal with anxiety, focus, hyperactivity, and sleep and things like that, it definitely makes a big difference. If you're watching now, you can head over to neuralbalancecbd.com and learn a little bit more about it. But stick around here in just a minute or two. I'll give you a coupon code that you can use to save some money as well. We haven't actually had, we just got the product in a couple of weeks ago. We are getting good feedback from it so far. Now we want to talk about a couple things: age, dosage, contraindications. As most things like this, we don't want to use it below age 2 years. So it's 2 years of age or older. And the way we do the Neural Balance product is we basically tell people ages 2 to 10, use a half dose and start low and slow. You don't want to start them on a full dose. Start with a half dose and do that for a couple of weeks just to see how that works for you. And then you can make some adjustments based on your experiences there. And then people 11 years and older, they can start on a full dose. Although we often recommend, if you have a child even that's 12 or 13, but they're a little on the small side, or they're very sensitive to supplements and things like that, that you would start them on a half dose as well. Low and slow is a term that I hear a lot. So, of course, the directions are right there on the bottle. But when it comes to age and dosage, what do you recommend, and how did you come up with the different dosages and all of that?
Well, just to start with, all of the ingredients, you have our organic brown rice curcumin complex, and then you have our full spectrum hemp. All of these are completely non-toxic. There's no possibility of overdosing on these materials. So in terms of there being, unless the child or the person has any kind of blood thinning disease, then you need to talk to your doctor before taking it.
Right, and that's on the label too.
That being said, we've seen benefit in doing loading doses at the front end rather than being kind of slow and careful in terms of your, like stepping up kind of approach.
Right.
We've seen a lot of benefit to doing a heavy loading dose early on, and then backing off once you find benefit.
Okay.
So, because and the reason why that is because some diseases are like there's a wall of biological processes going on, and in order to have your benefit, you need to change or shift those biological processes down to a normal state. And in order to do that, you have to overcome that threshold of whatever, if it's an inflammation signal or a stress signal. You need to overcome that before you can get things to change and to shift.
Okay.
So I would recommend starting with a high dose to begin with.
Okay.
If up to 10 years old, you can start with 2 to 3 capsules twice a day, and then scaling back from there. Because it's the brown rice and full spectrum product, you can mix it right into water. The product will go right into solution, and that also shows how easily it is to absorb. You can mix it with water or
That's
food.
handy. That is very handy because the reason we started with the drink powder over capsules at first was because a lot of the folks that use our product Neural Balance with anandinol, they won't swallow capsules. So we have a berry flavored drink. So if you're using Neural Balance now and you're using the drink powder, the good thing about the Neural Hemp is that you can pull that capsule apart and mix it right in with your scoop of berry Neural Balance, and they go well together and they'll dissolve, and the berry will cover any taste profile that is present from the Neural Hemp. And it'll be a really good a good way to administer both of them easily and effectively, and they work well together.
And it tastes great. It doesn't. There's no
Right.
negative taste profile to any of this. It actually has kind of a light, nutty taste to it. So again,
Okay.
I would start with more, and then once you find once you've gotten benefit, then really what's happened is the body has changed to a more balanced state, and then you can use, one or two capsules twice a day for maintenance.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. So basically, I know everything is done in Oklahoma. It's grown in Oklahoma, processed in Oklahoma,
Correct.
manufacturing, encapsulation. So you're
Everything's right
basically
here.
we call chain of possession of the raw material right up to the bottle when you send it to us. You have possession of that from basically from beginning to end. So
That's
that's something
that's
I really
correct.
like. Yeah, is because you're the less people that handle it, obviously, the less chance of mistakes being made or something being measured improperly or testing being skipped or something. So I really appreciate that you guys do everything there in house and within your immediate control. That speaks a lot, I think, to the care that you guys put into it because I know when we were talking about putting this together, it's obvious there's a very wide variety of suppliers and efficacy and levels and all of that. So it's definitely something that makes us feel better about it, knowing the quality and the standards that you have at Ultra Botanica, and that's why we chose to work with you on this product. I got a question here from Lisa. Hello, where can you purchase it from? So I'll throw the website up here, but stick around for a minute because once I let Adam go, I'm going to give you a coupon code so you can save some money there too. Do you have any particular advice or recommendations, things to avoid? We didn't really touch on contraindications a little bit, but on the bottle we mentioned specifically, of course, don't use if you're pregnant or lactating. Don't use if you're using blood thinners, and that's because of the curcumin, right? The
Yeah,
UltraCur.
that's right. And it's not all blood thinners. You should, if somebody is on Coumadin, warfarin, Eliquis, certain classes of blood thinners, they should talk to their doctor. Um, Curcumin specifically inhibits the FXA node in the thrombin pathway. Not that that means anything to anybody, but our curcumin definitely gets into the body and definitely can influence blood thinning at higher doses, and it's really contraindicated with certain kinds of blood thinners.
Okay.
Other than that, there's really no contraindications. There's never been any known toxicities in the decades of research that have been with curcumin, both for hemp and for curcumin on the human body. It's really one of the most safest and powerful modulators of inflammation and ironically also blood sugar modulation or healthy blood sugar in the body.
Hmm. That's interesting. So there might be even some implications for that with someone with hypoglycemia or diabetes or
That's correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we've had multiple people. You go on to if you look up UltraCur, which is the branded ingredient on Amazon, you can see multiple reports of people talking about both blood sugar and pretty dramatic inflammation benefits that they're seeing
that's
from the
great.
technology. Yeah.
That's great. Well, Adam, I really appreciate the work that you do. I appreciate the time that you put into putting this product together for us. There were, a couple things that we were very specific about because of our users have some very specific needs, and you accommodated that, and we really appreciate that. And I appreciate you being on today to kind of help me introduce Neural Hemp to our viewers. And do you have anything to add to it or
Well, I
anything for
just
the cause?
we just learned in the last couple of days that the technology was approved by the U.S. Patent Office. So we have a patent being issued on the technology, which is a huge step for
That's
everybody.
great.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
really a testament to the power of the technology. I just we welcome dialogue. So, Gabe, if you any of your people that are listening in, or any of the people that end up being users of the product, please feel free to loop us in. We're glad to help and do what we can do to.
So
Uh,
we have a couple questions now popping up. Now that
okay.
now that I'm ready to let you go, we have a few questions. One is Jen asks, "Is the product available through any natural products retailers?" Not yet. The thing about the CBDs and all of that, it's even though this isn't a CBD, it's a full spectrum hemp, and there's no THC. We're falling in the legal limits there, so that's not a concern. We don't have it in any retailers yet. This is actually a new product. We're just launched it. We just received our first order. I think I said a couple weeks ago. It's been about 3 or 4 weeks now. Time flies when you're locked up on COVID
COVID.
quarantine. But we're not available in any natural product retailers yet. We really wanted to do this through our website, a direct to consumer thing. It helps us with pricing. It helps us to be able to offer you a little better price than it would require to be in a natural products retailer. So you can get it by going to neuralbalancecbd.com. I'll throw that back up there. And take this banner down so you can see. I'll take the comment down so you can see it. So neuralbalancecbd.com, but wait just a minute because I'm going to give you a code so that you can save money. Now, Lisa, she asked also, so she says her son is 14, he's on the spectrum, and he has speech apraxia. He's always had OCD, but during puberty it's been the worst. Is this something that would help with that? What do you think in regards to that?
Absolutely. A lot of these neurological exacerbations are one because of microinflammation in the brain.
Mm.
Either, people point to potentially heavy metal poisoning or heavy metal issues, or a lot of times there could have been a pediatric event with a high fever that could affect neurologically during the growth years. The curcumin itself, because we know it gets through the blood-brain barrier, could have a profound impact on clarity of thinking and overall neurological health, because it can help modulate what could be an exacerbated or an out of balance inflammation signal. And the endocannabinoids, if your son is endocannabinoid deficient, which many people are because of diet and because of the not getting enough sun and all sorts of things that can contribute to being endocannabinoid deficient, providing exogenous or natural endocannabinoids to the body can help the body stabilize and restructure itself.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
so absolutely could help out. And as with all our products, we have a money back guarantee. We don't limit you to 30 days. We cover that first order, and we encourage you to use the whole container before you come to any conclusions. We do that because, I mean, with natural products, you're trying to support something that has not been working properly for quite some time.
That's
So
right.
we want to give you the opportunity to let it build up in the system, to start to overcome some of the problems, to balance things out, to support a good balance so that you can really get the full benefit. We'd rather let you use it, whether it's 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, and get a full benefit of it from it before you have to make that decision. One thing about a 30-day guarantee is 30 days often isn't enough, and we don't want you to be stuck with it. If it doesn't work, we don't want your money, but we would rather, give you that guarantee so you can use the whole container. So thank you for that question. We hope that we can offer you some support there. Adam, I really appreciate you joining us today. I'm sure we'll have you back on for another show.
Gabriel, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Adam. We'll talk soon.
Take care.
Have
Bye
a good
now.
one. All right, so that was Adam Payne from UltraBotanica. He's actually, they're the manufacturer that makes our Neural Brock formula, which you can find on our Neural Balance website. But also they are the manufacturer that we use for our new product, Neural Hemp. And I promised you that we would have a discount code for you. So there you go. If you go to neuralbalancecbd.com and you choose your bottle, you can use code SRTV, and that'll save you 10% on the order. So we'll leave that going through there for a minute or two so that you can make note of that. Neuralbalancecbd.com and use code SRTV to save 10% on your order. If you want to learn more about our main product, Neural Balance with Anandinol, you can go to neuralbalance.com and click on the How It Works tab to learn a little bit more about that. And of course, if you want to learn about this great product that we talked about today, Neural Hemp, then you'll go to neuralbalancecbd.com and use code SRTV to save 10%. So use SRTV at neuralbalancecbd.com to save 10%. So we really appreciate you joining us today. I really love doing the show because it gives me the chance to connect. I love that we can, answer some of the questions in the comments. If you have a question as you're watching this after the fact, right? So if you're watching this and you missed the live broadcast of it, but while you were watching it, it brought up a question for you and that we didn't address it, please leave that comment or that question in the comment section so that I can make sure that we get it answered for you either in a future video or right there in the comment section. So if you don't be shy. If you missed out on asking a question while we were live, or we didn't address a question that you want addressed, then please just ask it in the comment section. And of course, as always, share, let people know about the show so that you can help other people learn ways to support their family with calm, focus, sleep, things like that. It's becoming a bigger problem, anxiety, sleep problems, focus. And as always, we don't want to make your children manageable. We want to help them be who they are by supporting a natural balance of their endocannabinoid system. So thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe and tell your friends about us so that we can help them too. Thanks for joining us. Look forward to seeing you again.